Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to wherever you may be or whatever time you may be watching this. Welcome to the 6th episode of the LVM Podcast. My name is Rebecca Benny, and today I'll be talking about the rest of the week after finding out about my mother's murder, and including in today's podcast will be especially the wake/viewing, and the funeral. So before I do start going into detail about this podcast, I do just want to put a little trigger warning out there. Some information included in this podcast may be triggering for some, and I just want to give you a warning about that, as we'll be including, details about the viewing and or funeral details. Maybe that may have some of you relive some moments that you may not be prepared for, and just want to give that warning ahead of time. Moving forward, just a little recap. In the previous episode, I went over the days Monday and Tuesday, mainly just breaking down how I broke it to my friends and other people within the school and the process about that. If you would like to listen to that, that will be episode 5 of the LVM podcast. So in this episode, I will be going in more detail about the wake, or viewing, as some may call it, and the funeral. So on Wednesday, when I entered school, I was about to head to my class, and the lady that led the morning announcements asked me if I wanted to announce about my mother's death. So honestly, personally, I did not want that, but I guess, since she pulled me aside, I'm just like, maybe I should do this on behalf of my father, because, they did do prayer requests for the morning. So I'm just like, maybe he would appreciate this. So I'm like, might as well just do it on his behalf. And also because, my mother's funeral was across the school, so it's not like I could hide it from anyone, technically. So basically, I was just like, you know what, that's fine. You can announce it on the overhead morning announcements, but you cannot say the cause of her death. And I specifically had to, make sure she heard that, because this woman, she will just do her own thing and not care about the other person. So I had to be firm about that, because I did not want people knowing that much about my business. So either way, after that, I went directly to class, and I remember standing in class, and I'm kind of just anxious the whole time, because obviously I know she's going to announce it, and I do not want people looking at me. So we're all standing for morning announcements, because pledge allegiance, prayer, whatever, we had to stand for that. So I'm standing there, and I'm towards a window. So once I hear my name, she's like, one of our students, Rebecca Benny, and suddenly I just turn my head, because I know people are going to be staring at me. She said something along the lines of her mother tragically passed away, just keep her in your prayers, or something like that. In my head, I'm like, she better not say the cause of death or so, but she didn't. So I was happy about that. She didn't do that much. So I just wanted that moment to be over with, because people were looking at me. So yeah, nothing, the rest of the day, nothing was out of the ordinary for me. I went along the day just doing my own thing, just trying to ignore people, just sticking with the normal people that I usually talk to. Pretty much that's pretty much it, honestly. But I did have to leave school early that day for the wake or viewing, whatever you may call it. But just to prepare for that beforehand. So I did leave early for that. And also, for those who may not know what a wake or viewing is, it's just usually a ceremony, or a process before or the day before the funeral, where family members of the community can just spend time with the body, I guess I should say. Just a time, kind of your last moments before they're buried, obviously. So that's what that was. So the wake viewing was taking place at a funeral home, and my father and I, we arrived there. The rest of our family members are there, and nobody has seen the body as yet. I think the head coordinators of the funeral home was waiting for my father and I to arrive and to have us see it first. And honestly, like this whole for this whole week, I've been complaining about like privacy issues. Now, this moment that I'm about to talk about is like one of the main moments that really just pissed me off, because I was highly annoyed, because this is just one of like those boundary breakers that just, I'm just like, why was it necessary, And honestly, my family doesn't even know what privacy is. So am I that surprised? Not really, but it was very irritating. Either way, beforehand, my father and I talked about whether we wanted to keep it open or closed casket, because we didn't know how like severe the her wounds were, like on her upper body, or mainly like her face. One of my aunts was there, and the head coordinator comes to my father and I, and my aunt's eavesdropping on the whole conversation. She's like, "You guys can go ahead, see the body first." And obviously, my father and I wanted to do it privately, but my aunt, she kept following me and kept talking to my dad, saying, "I'll come with you." And my dad's like, "No, we need this for ourselves." And I guess my dad thought she wasn't there. I knew she was there the whole time, but I'm not going to speak up because I don't want to be disrespectful. Like, I'm honestly, at this point in my life, I would have said something, but back then I was definitely not as more upfront. So I didn't say anything. I went in there after my dad, and I'll come back to like my aunt later on. My dad still doesn't know she's there. But honestly, my dad's like, he's paying attention on something else. So that's the least of his worries. And honestly, that was the least of my worries also. So it was whatever at that point. But yeah, no, viewing her body was kind of like one of the worst moments ever. I don't think I was prepared for that. It was just a really weird, sight, only because it's kind of like you hear it from detectives and when you see all these things going on in the news, but you don't really actually physically see it. And then, because, you have someone alive in front of you like a few days before, and then there's like a 5-day gap in between, and then you suddenly see like them in a casket. There was no in between, you know? So it was just really weird. So at funeral homes, you're told not to touch a body for whatever reason. I honestly don't know. Honestly, a part of me really wanted to, just to see like how real it was, because it kind of like, she looked like a wax figure almost. It was just really, it was weird. Like, she didn't really look like herself. Like, her whole body was just swollen, and a part of me was just really confused as to why she looked like that. So I almost went like, I almost had like a little mental breakdown, or whatever you want, like a little panic attack. I don't know, something like that. Because I started shaking, and then because I was talking to my dad, like why are her hands all swollen and whatnot, and then he explained to me, because of the amount of blood that she lost, that's why, she's like that. So it didn't really help me feel better, but I understood. So I was just like, okay. It was just like the little things that I also like realized, like she didn't have her wedding ring on, she didn't have her glasses with her. Just a lot of things that were not with her were taken into like the investigation for evidence. So it's not like she could keep it with her or anything like that. So I mean, I don't know what other people do when their families pass away. So, but it was just like those little things that I realized that weren't there. So even through like that whole breakdown that I almost had, I had to like stop myself, because my dumb aunt was there behind us, intruding in my whole privacy. situation. And it was just irritating because my dad finally realized that she was there and he got mad and just walked out because she just ruined the whole thing. I'm just like, why are you even there in the first place? Like, how's this beneficial to you somehow, you know? Like, you got the first scoop of how the family reacted. Like, I don't know. It's just highly irritating. So yeah, the rest of the night was pretty long. A lot of people showed up. Over 200 people showed up to this viewing. And most of the people there were on my dad's behalf for his support because none of my mom's family members, they live out of the country from where we were, so none of her could actually see her or anything like that. But I mean, mainly the night was just me hearing stories about her, like stories that I never even knew. It's kind of like hearing things about someone that I don't even know. So it was kind of really weird for me to hear, and like a lot of those things, because I felt like, you know, she was just like a completely different person in other people's eyes, which, you know, I'll talk about in future episodes. But yeah, so pretty much that whole night, after, you know, people telling their stories or whatever, it was me just mainly like kind of greeting people, you know, but like hugging every person that was there, which took forever. Like, I don't even know how, but even one of the staff members from my school showed up there. I even asked her, like, how did you even know about this? She's like, I know everything. I'm like, what does that even mean? So that was just kind of weird. Also, I do want to mention that, you know, I pretty much held it together the whole time. I didn't cry or anything. But, you know, while I'm like hugging other people, I see like two of my close relatives that I used to be close to, like in like the line coming towards me, and a part of me could just feel myself like starting getting really emotional, and I'm like, you know what, I already know I'm going to bust out crying and I won't be able to stop it. And you know, once they get closer and closer, I can feel my eyes start watering. And you know, they come and greet me, and you know, I couldn't really stop myself from crying, but then after that I had to keep it together because, you know, hundreds of other people are there watching me and like trying to inspect my every emotion and action. So I'm just like, all right, let me just stop. And you know, I had to keep going on with the other people in line or whatever. But after everyone, like all the other people left in the building, it was time for us to leave. I don't even think the whole night I looked at the body. Like, even while people were talking, I faced a different way so that I'm not looking towards that direction. After seeing her body the first time, I don't think I ever looked at it again. Even before leaving, I didn't have another look at her or anything. I just, you know, walked out the building and whatnot, just to get away from all that. I guess another thing of avoidance, I guess. So yeah, so coming to the next day, it's Thursday, which is the day of the funeral. And honestly, I mean, as sad or funny as it is, I did not want this day to happen, only because this is one of the first days I missed school. I was a loser in high school and I didn't miss a day of school, and this was the only day I would miss. So I honestly just wanted to go to school after the funeral, but my dad's like, that's not gonna happen. So I'm like, all right, whatever. And so before leaving for the funeral, my dad and we just like had a little chat, and you know, he was like, today's gonna be the hardest day because it's the time that we're gonna bury the body away. And honestly, personally for me, it wasn't, the hardest part was the viewing for me, because I couldn't mentally like take the whole, like, I couldn't mentally like, you know, do the whole visual part, you know. At least for the funeral, she's already in the casket, so I can't technically see her go in, but I guess everyone views it differently. But for him, he said, like, this is the hardest part because, this is actually her going away forever. The funeral was taken at the church across my school because that's where my mom went to church, and we figured, that's where she would be most comfortable going. Pretty much, I was there, with my family. Um, there was a little drama going on, so I wanted to, like, avoid it. So I decided to just greet the people coming through the door, since I guess that's something my dad would want me to do. I just did it on my own. Um, I also let, some of my friends come over to the funeral if they wanted to, so a few of them did show up. Um, so yeah, pretty much the whole time I just tried to avoid people staring at me. Again, there was like over 200 people at the funeral, so a lot of eyes on me. Um, but I mean, honestly, the funeral, like the message that the priest had during the mass, I guess I should call it, was nice. I will talk about that in a future episode also, because I feel like the message that he had really could help a lot of people, especially for homicide cases. So after the service, my dad makes me meet all these new people I've never seen before, but I gotta hug and greet them because it's respect or whatever. But it's just really funny to me because I feel like during these type of occasions you always meet new people or like just family members in general, and you just never see them again afterwards. So it's kind of like, I don't know if it's ironic, but it's definitely weird. So eventually it comes to the point where, the burial process, and, we're escorted by the police to the graveyard. Um, it was just like, the same process of the prayer service, song service. Eventually we do put, the flowers or roses, on the casket once it goes down. And I hug people that come up to me and give their condolences and whatnot. And honestly, this is like just the one time I was able to walk away this whole week because I had to like be respectful and do things for other people to not make it seem like I'm disrespectful or anything. And the reason I just wanted to walk away was just because, one, it was super hot that day, and two, I just didn't feel like people I just did not want people staring at me at all. So I just had to get away from that situation. So after the burial, we had the repast, and for those that may not know, it's usually just like a little service you have after the funeral with other family members just to eat and just be with each other, and whatnot. So honestly, it was just chill after that. I was able to sit with my cousins and just relax finally, and just to know that I can kind of get back to my normal life, but not really. It was just like, finally, like, the difficult, crazy part was over. I was just relieved that I don't have to deal with other people. And I mean, I don't mean that in a rude or harsh way. I mean, I don't know if it's the reason because, a lot of people are there just to be there, to be nosy or anything, because honestly, you just never see these people anymore because you don't know if they're there for themselves or if they're there for you, because like I said before, you don't see them again afterwards. So it's kind of just like, I know this is just a temporary thing, so I just rather not deal with it at all. But either way, I was just happy to be on my own afterwards, and this was my week in the simplest of ways of me explaining it. I mean, obviously, not everything was talked about, but I feel like I went through the main things. I hope you guys will join me for the rest of this journey, as I will continue to keep talking about my experiences with losing my mother to homicide. I hope you guys will like and subscribe to this video if you would like to. If you're listening to this on a podcast streaming platform, thank you for listening. And I hope to see you guys in the next episode. Bye.